Ancient strategy, modern sales, one usable line per episode.
Last time, structure creates agreement. Today, the one sentence that removes pressure, and why that single phrase might save more deals than any closing technique you've ever learned. Here's something I noticed. I had 3 promising deals last quarter. All of them had momentum, positive signals, verbal buy-in, clear need. And then, in each one, something shifted. The energy changed. They started pulling back.
What happened right before the pullback?
I got eager. I started pushing for timelines, asking when they could sign, suggesting urgency. By the end of this episode, you'll know why pressure destroys deals that are already moving, and the one sentence that resets everything. My old belief: urgency closes deals. If you don't create a deadline, the prospect drifts. If you don't press, they forget. So I would say things like, "This pricing expires Friday," or "I'd hate for you to miss this window."
And those phrases worked.
Sometimes, but more often, something strange happened. The deals that were moving smoothly, the ones where the prospect was already leaning in, those were the ones that stalled when I added pressure. The easy ones became hard.
Because pressure isn't a catalyst. It's a contaminant.
A contaminant.
When a deal is moving naturally, pressure introduces doubt. The prospect was comfortable. Now they feel pushed. Their brain asks, "Why is this person rushing me? What am I missing?" Pressure creates the very resistance you feared. Sun Tzu understood this deeply. He wrote about siege warfare, the most pressure-intensive form of battle. Gong Sheng Ji Fa, Wei Bu De Yi. The method of attacking a fortified city is adopted only when there is no alternative.
Siege is a last resort.
Because siege warfare, direct, frontal pressure, has the worst cost-to-benefit ratio of any military strategy. You lose soldiers, you lose time, you lose morale, and even when you win, you inherit rubble. Sun Tzu's generals who laid siege out of impatience, Jiang Bu Sheng Qi Fen, the general, unable to control his irritation. They destroyed what they were trying to capture. Hold that image.
So the generals had the army. They had the resources. The city was right there. But the siege failed because it was driven by impatience, not strategy.
The pressure came from the general's emotions, not from the conditions. And that's exactly what happens in sales. Your pressure comes from your anxiety about the deal, not from the prospect's readiness.
That's uncomfortably accurate. I push timelines because I'm worried the deal will slip, not because the prospect needs to move faster.
And the prospect feels that. They can't articulate it, but they feel it. Something shifted. The conversation stopped being about their problem and became about your timeline. That's the moment trust cracks.
So what does removing pressure actually look like in practice?
It looks like one sentence, delivered calmly, at the moment you feel most tempted to push. Instead of adding urgency, you say 5 words that change the entire dynamic.
That seems too simple.
Simple is what makes it work. Complex techniques require you to think in the moment. One sentence requires only courage. The courage to not push when everything in you says push. Let's look at what pressure actually costs.
So when I add pressure to a moving deal, what actually happens?
3 things, and they cascade. First, you shift the frame from collaboration to transaction. The prospect was working with you, exploring together. The moment you push a deadline, you become a salesperson with an agenda. The relationship moves from partner to vendor. That's a demotion you can't easily reverse.
Second,
you trigger the prospect's defense system. Pressure activates the amygdala, the brain's threat detector. Once that fires, rational evaluation stops. They're no longer weighing your offer. They're looking for the exit. Every piece of urgency you add makes the exit more attractive.
And third,
you sacrifice future leverage for present speed. Every time you push, you use credibility. That credibility is finite. Spend it on artificial urgency now, and you won't have it when you actually need the prospect to move. You've cried wolf, with deadlines.
So the pattern is, the deal is moving, I get anxious, I add pressure, the prospect shifts from engaged to guarded, the easy deal becomes a hard deal, and I blame them for hesitating.
When you created the hesitation.
By trying to prevent it.
Now, the sentence.
The one that removes pressure.
5 words. You use them when you feel the urge to push. When the deal is moving but not fast enough for your comfort. When you want to say, so when can we get this signed? You say this instead. No rush. Keep it easy.
That's it.
That's it. 5 words. No rush. You're releasing the timeline pressure. Keep it easy. You're signaling that the relationship matters more than the transaction. Together, they tell the prospect, I'm not going anywhere. You're safe.
But won't the deal stall if I say that?
Here's what actually happens. The prospect, who was tensing up, who was starting to feel the push, exhales. The pressure drops. Their brain shifts from threat detection back to evaluation. And a prospect who is evaluating calmly closes faster than a prospect who is defending nervously.
So removing pressure actually speeds things up.
Counterintuitive but consistent. The deals you don't push are the ones that close. Because the prospect moves at their own pace, which is almost always faster than the pace of someone being chased. 2 more tools to pair with this. When you feel the urge to mention a deadline, replace it with a question. What does your ideal timeline look like?
You're giving them ownership of the pace.
When they set the timeline, they commit to it. When you set it, they resist it. Same destination, different energy. The prospect who says, we'd like to move by end of quarter, has just created their own urgency, without you lifting a finger.
And the second tool.
After saying, no rush. Keep it easy, follow up with genuine curiosity. What would help you feel confident about this? You've removed pressure and replaced it with support. The prospect isn't defending anymore. They're thinking out loud, and people who think out loud tend to talk themselves into the decision.
3 tools. No rush. Keep it easy. What does your ideal timeline look like? And, what would help you feel confident? All about removing pressure instead of adding it.
Let's lock them in.
Here's my takeaway. Pressure doesn't close deals. It closes doors. The moment you push, the prospect shifts from evaluating your offer to evaluating their escape. The deals that close fastest are the ones where the prospect never felt rushed.
Keep going.
Sun Tzu said siege warfare is the last resort, because direct pressure destroys what you're trying to capture. In sales, artificial urgency is your siege. It burns trust and creates the very resistance you feared. The principle, remove the pressure, and the deal moves on its own. One sentence resets the dynamic. No rush. Keep it easy.
Drill zone. Come back here before your next deal conversation. You're in a follow-up call. The prospect is interested but hasn't committed. Your instinct screams, push the timeline. Create urgency. What do you say instead?
No rush. Keep it easy.
Again, like you mean it. Like you'd rather lose the deal than damage the trust.
No rush. Keep it easy.
Good. Now the timeline question.
What does your ideal timeline look like?
And the confidence question.
What would help you feel confident about this?
The sequence. Urge to push hits. Reset. No rush. Keep it easy. Explore. What does your ideal timeline look like? Support. What would help you feel confident? Remove the siege. Let the gates open.
Reset. Explore. Support.
This week's test. Find one deal where you've been adding pressure. One conversation where you've been pushing timelines or creating urgency. In your next interaction, say those 5 words. No rush. Keep it easy.
And if the deal slows down?
It won't. Watch what happens. The prospect relaxes. The conversation opens up. They start sharing information they were holding back. Because people don't share freely when they feel pressured. They share when they feel safe.
Which tool should I try first?
Whichever matches your week. A. No rush. Keep it easy. B. What does your ideal timeline look like? Or C. What would help you feel confident? Drop your pick in the comments. I read every one.
Can we hear those one more time?
A. No rush. Keep it easy. B. What does your ideal timeline look like? C. What would help you feel confident?
What's next?
What to say when talks stall. When the deal goes quiet and nobody's responding. Same calm tone. One usable line.
Ancient strategy, modern sales, one usable line per episode.